My name's Wilsea-Smith. I'm from, I work at ANU at the moment, just for the next few weeks. But we've been through a number of reviews since October, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about those reviews and where we've got to, or where I've got to. So in October last year, Partners in Performance were appointed by the COO, our Chief Operating Officer, to actually do a review of the timetabling. Now, the reason this was done is that under the 2017 staff survey, the result was that timetabling was number 8 in the bottom 10 of the university's poorest services. And of course, when you look at what the problems are, actually the facilities around the room, AV. There were some major problems around the redevelopment of the Union Court as well. So everybody was feeling very unhappy about the timetable. So the COO thought, we'll run a project. So the Partners in Performance came up with a number of recommendations. So early release of tutorials under the current process. ANU does not have an allocation system, and they use a learning management system, which is Moodle. So the group functionality in Moodle, which is not very good at all. So the students told PIP that they wanted early release of their tutorials under the current process. So there was a number of problems with that recommendation. Policy and procedure. The first thing that I did at ANU is establish what we needed to do in the policy and procedure. Whatever work that you're doing in your universities must be supported by an appropriate policy. So for me, the most important thing is staff unavailability, and I'll talk a bit more about that. And some of those things that we can change, and those things that we can't change in the timetable. E-form for staff unavailability. I've been using a paper form. Am I happy about an e-form? E-forms are IntelliDocs, so they have a workflow, and I'm thinking maybe 150, 200 staff. Is an e-form going to work? Yeah, potentially it can do. I don't care what the process is out in the college, because it's the college's information, and all I want is the information in the timetable engine before I start scheduling. Student allocation system. I've written the business case 3 times. They've had me change it 3 times over the last 2 years. So that was good. PIP backed up the fact that we needed a student allocation system. An enterprise-wide booking system. ANU does not even have web room bookings. Go figure. Additional rooms brought into the timetable. We've got literally 50 or 60 rooms that are used for teaching that are actually out of my control. So, but I'd already been doing some work on this. I'd identified a number of key rooms, and I thought, right, we'll get those into the timetable. So that's the first review. So what happened at the end of last year is that those 6 items were actually hijacked by the Service Improvement Group. My role at ANU was supposed to be the timetabling and projects manager, delivering critical timetabling projects for ANU. But these projects, Allocate Plus, a student allocator, room bookings, rooms into the timetable operations, were all the stuff that I'd been working on. And then somebody comes along and offers it, gives it to the Service Improvement Group. So the real problem is that the people in PIP, the people in SIG, actually don't have any timetable background at all. The program manager had 17 months experience working on 2 projects and not even working in a university, and certainly no timetable background. So you can imagine how I felt about that. And that they started to try and get involved in other aspects of the timetable without really understanding what they were doing. And as I say, the lack of experience shows they were talking about stuff that they really didn't know. So We've had a number of presentations, and sorry, Mark, that yours isn't on here, but ACU on Wednesday talking about changes and having a change request form. La Trobe, Curtin, and now this morning, University of Canberra, talking about all of the changes that you do. Oh, she's not here? Oh yeah, oh, sorry, I thought you were at the front before. And now we've got RMIT. So what do we understand about the data that we're using? So there's different models of data collection. We know that. Not one size fits all for the universities. One thing that it is clear is that the data that we're getting is not accurate. But do we know why the data is not accurate? So I've got a few questions for everybody. Go back one. Who has problems with staff unavailability? Ooh. How good is your teaching structure information?
What do you mean by that?
So lectures, tutorials, is it stable? Does it stay the same each year, or do people change it? That's great. What about course scheduling for the coming year? We've got major problems with people not completing the scheduling on time. So we end up having to, we're late delivering a timetable because we don't have all of the courses in. Our academic quality set the dates in line with the requirements for government, but that final date is the 1st of November. So there are some issues there. But the real thing with the late scheduling is problems with your programs of study that you're going to use for your class checking. Curriculum management. Oh my God. So a good story that I can tell you is that we had a biology and a medical science course. Biology, the School of Biology decided that they were not going to offer this biology course that the students required. It was a course required for them to complete their degrees. And the only equivalent was the medical science course. So they hadn't discussed this change. They just cancelled the biology course. That meant there were 70 students who needed to enrol in the medical course, and we'd actually completed the schedule, and guess what? Nowhere to put them. So, curriculum management. And along with curriculum management is projected student enrolments. I constantly hear, we don't know who's going to enrol in this course, and Mark said, you're absolutely right. We may not know what's happening with your first year, your foundation year, but we should know exactly what's happening with 2, 3 and 4. There's no excuse for not understanding that. Staff workload planning. So we've heard all about this, you know. I need to change the timetable because we haven't got anybody appointed to this. And it's all too late. So, that's probably not everything, but those are the major things as I see it. So what do we know? The timetable consumes information. We don't generate any of it. We don't create it. We just need that information to be accurate so that we can build the timetable. So we're the consumers of the information. I think it's a good way to think about how we build the timetable, because it's always like the timetable have done this and the timetable have done that, but we haven't done any of that. We're the consumer. So actually, as the consumer, guess what? We should be able to demand a good quality of the information that's been provided to us. So, what's happening? Right then. So, understanding that my hero, John Deming, who knows TQM, Total Quality Management. He was one of the founding fathers of that movement. But if you can't improve a process until you understand it, And if you can't describe what the process is, you don't know what you're doing. So, my review. For my MBA research project, I reviewed the timetable processes at ANU, but it could have been equally any university. I used business process management, BPM, and BPM is based on John Deming's TQM philosophies. A lot of you will have seen the BPM notation because BAs use it all the time to actually do your as-is processes and your future processes. But there's an element to this that they don't generally do. Design thinking. Now, there's a few people here know that I've spoken about design thinking before. So these two frameworks. So this is the life cycle of BPM. But the real key with BPM is actually identifying those parts of the process that create waste and create waiting times. So that's the real key with BPM. Design thinking, and the real key here, that it was only one element of design thinking that I've used, and that's empathy. When I did my interview, although my interviews. So, and Nick was saying about agile and fail often, and don't worry about it. And design thinking is based on that. You prototype. If it doesn't work, you try it again, so you fail quickly. So part of the agile, it's agile philosophy. So, okay, my research findings. The greatest area of dysfunction is how the critical data required to develop a staff-student focused timetable is created. So there are other areas of the timetable processes that have issues, but the real area of dysfunction is the information that we gather. So I've got some quotes here. These are actual quotes from my research information. Often there's quite a high impact. This is how they spoke it. So they came through, whether it's someone at the last minute deciding to offer a subject and suddenly needs rooms for a time that doesn't clash with students. Does that resonate with anybody? Okay. So this is from an academic. I have been surprised by the way my colleagues manipulate things so that their wishes come first, and even if that is expressed at the expense of the university as a whole. So we often think that this stuff is being done to us, but actually some of the academics out there know what's going on, and this is an example of that. So RMIT wanting to be unique and offering students a choice. This was a comment from another academic saying that the students can basically build their own degree. So Jody's here, he did a network map, and when you look at what you're trying to schedule, I haven't put it in because, but it's really complicated. So, and then we've got this is from a timetabler. The first part is where it comes in, so the information coming in, getting the subjects that are running in that year, we've just said about that, then getting the data that is put in the web data collector correct, and then actually checking the draft timetable. So, and quite often people miss all three of those opportunities to make sure that the information's correct. So what are the costs? Has anybody done any calculations as to the cost of making changes to the timetable? So this is just a very simple high-level costing that I did for the project, and I've just thrown it together. It isn't only the timetable staff, it's the administrators and it is the academic staff. So as timetablers, we spend 80% of our time making changes to the timetable. The rest of the time it's building it. So just very high level cost, but that's just for 650 changes, around just under $400,000. So the issue names that I came up with are like data incompleteness of programs of study. That's for courses and they're not right. Requests for changes which are just general requests. Unstructured staff negotiations. Oh, I've seen the timetable, I don't like that time, I want this time. And then there are those changes that we can have to do because of unexpected things.
Just wondering where your cost comes from. So, if it's $210, what is that cost?
Oh, just based on the amount of time. It's a
Staff cost.
Yeah, staff costs. Yeah, they're just staff costs. So for the timetable team, it's my timetable team multiplied by 3, by the hours, by the number of changes. So it's a very simple high-level, but at least it puts a figure to what the cost of those changes. So I made a set of recommendations using process design heuristics, which are based around the process business mapping, BPM. So the first one is provide course structure from the source. So we've seen some of the presentations that some of that information does, in some universities, is extracted from the source. They're talking to the conveners or the lecturers about what the course structure is. This heuristic states that you should capture information once and at the source. So the next one. Who's responsible for the data? You need to have a clear responsibility. So what we have, the heuristic is control relocation. So that is moving the collection of the information closer to the source, so that you've got helps with clear accountabilities, and in particular where we've got shared responsibilities. So the way quite a few of the universities do the data collection is we go academic, administrator, timetable, administrator, academic. So the control relocation should be timetabler, academic. We cut out the middle person. And as you can see, contracting tutors earlier, how many excuses can they come up with for not appointing tutors? So we're under the design heuristics of resequencing and parallelism, is that you get that information earlier. There are some ways that Syllabus Plus can be used to generate. So if you're having your tutors from your honours or postgrad, there are ways that Syllabus Plus can be used to make sure that your honours and postgrads don't clash with the times of the tutorials. So we've got language classes, and although they only employ the tutors, they have a separate contract for them every year. It's the same tutor that they have every year. And guess what? If they only work on a Tuesday and Wednesday, why don't we capture that? Developing the capability of the timetable team. This is the heuristic principles of specialism and triage. So building a timetable is a very skilled job. And you have to understand your data, you have to know how it can be manipulated, and what is critical is that you have to understand what the academic wants. If you've got a timetabler talking to the academic about what they want, they will know the questions to ask so that you can give them exactly what they want. So the other thing around the administrators is that who supports them? You know, they're often the only person in a school who actually does timetabling. And nearly all of them have other duties that they have to do. So why do we continually expect them to understand the complexities of building a timetable? There's another reason why it's really important for people who know about timetabling to talk to the academics is because there's a lot of tacit knowledge that the academics have that we need to squirrel out of them. And only timetablers know those questions to ask. So I've already spoken, other recommendations is that you've got a policy that the timetable team can apply. And you know, if you apply those rules and those policy items from that they're going to be backed up. The real key here is that one of the main problems is the staff unavailability. So Mark had in his presentation that you had to be strong. Timetablers need to be strong, because if somebody says, oh, we had an instance where one of the business school staff, there were 2 or 3 of her colleagues, and she'd been talking to them, and she said, oh, I've got an unavailability, and I can't teach before 9, and I have to finish at 4 o'clock, so I can't teach any later than 4. And then she'd been talking to her colleagues, and one of her colleagues had said, oh, I didn't know you could do that, because her colleague had 10, can't start before 10 and finish at 5 o'clock. And then it becomes the timetables problem. It was our fault because we didn't tell her that she could do that unavailability. It absolutely has nothing to do with the timetable whatsoever. It is a workload planning issue. Curriculum management, really critical that we get the courses in and that the changes aren't just done willy-nilly without considering the rest of the impact on the rest of the university. Timelines, really, really critical for timelines to be met. So, conclusion. We need to develop a better understanding of the underlying issues. We've got design heuristics here, so we know some of them. The fact that our timetablers should be liaising directly with the conveners and the academic staff would take away a significant amount of change that's happening. Because actually the timetablers, in this instance, would be able to make the academics responsible. You told me this information, we've checked it, we've been through this and we've checked it. And it's correct. And there is research out there as well. It's a psychological thing. And that is that you hold, if you ask somebody that you're going to tell the truth on a form, the research shows that they are much more likely to make sure that the information is correct when it's provided. So that's a bit of psychology in terms of having your timetable team talking to your academic. Because guess what? The academic is a lot less likely to change something if they know that they've spoken directly to the timetabler and we've said, this is it, this is what's going to go in. So, we should question more. So, review. Never stop thinking that what you've got is great. You have to review it. You have to understand what works and what doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, you need to think about how can we make it better. Review. Review. So, finally, I've done well, Fred.
You have done very well.
Okay. I never learn anything talking. I only learn things when I ask questions, and I ask questions all the time. So please, feel free. So, any questions?
That's not really a question, but it's just a comment. Interesting, Bernie, that you said you had the same issue with contracting tutors at the last minute, because one of the excuses we hear at the UC, because we're from Canberra, is that ANU attracts all our staff. So we're the second, that's why we get them late, but you're facing the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Constellation ACU says choose it for the university's future.
Yeah.
Bernie, our casual academics now have an open-ended contract, so they don't need to wait for their new contract.
Right, okay.
So all our casual academics, they don't know how many hours they're going to get, but
No.
they've all got open-ended contracts.
Right,
So
okay.
you don't have to renew them every semester or every year.
Yeah.
Doesn't that mean that there's many BA issues that they can't be let go because they're continually...
No, because the class is like a 0 hours contract, and then they find out what their hours are post a semester. But they're in our system because they've got contracts,
Yeah.
so they can be attached.
So it has to
No, because if there's no classes for them to teach, then I can get some info from Travis, the director of HR, of how they went down that track, but all our casual academics now have open-ended contracts.
Cool. Shell?
Talking about speaking with the academics, one of the things that we do in nursing is that we actually only talk to 2 people, that's a course coordinator and a program administrator.
Yeah.
And we talk to them and we schooled them on timetable we speak, and then they go and have the chats with the top coordinators, and they get it back and we put it all together, because then we're protecting the course, not what an individual necessarily wants all the time.
Yeah.
Which might go against what they want for the course as a whole for all the students. And so we found that that's worked well in that sense, and then we've only dealing with 2 people as opposed to 22 people.
Yeah.
And they feel that their course is being protected as well for the student experience, rather than each individual who could go completely against what you want for, especially when it's a controlled course like nursing.
So the idea of having somebody who's responsible is that they've got a really good idea of how the course should be delivered, because they do it year on year, they know what the structure is. They can support the scheduling of the courses for the coming year, because they've been talking to the academics or the conveners, and they know what courses are coming, what courses are changing semester. So the emphasis moves away from just, this is another job I've got to do, to actually this is part of my role, that it's in my best interests, and I'm going to take accountability for it, so that I can get the best result for the students and the staff. At the end of the day, we know how many times have we said it, rubbish in, rubbish out. But if it's if you've got somebody taking responsibility, what about the workload planning for the staff? You know, if you're collecting data, you can say who's teaching this. And there are some other considerations as well. So one of the real key things is the timetable is the problem solver. But actually, should it be the timetable that's the problem solver? So somebody's failed to put a course in. Oh, I need, you've seen the comments. I need the resources and I need it crash free. Is that our problem? No. It's not our problem. Oh, we haven't got a staff member to teach this. Actually, it's in the timetable, the students need it, it is the department's responsibility to appoint somebody to teach it at the time it's scheduled. It is not the timetable's responsibility to actually try and fiddle with it because somebody doesn't want to teach at that time. Go, Cheryl.
I experienced last year when I had a business analyst who came to see me from colleges to tell me that I owed the timetable. Then they needed to save basically $1.5 million of their salary budget. And I turned around and said, I don't owe the timetable.
No.
I said, because I don't decide what you're actually delivering.
Yeah.
So I said, you are the people who control that. The service I provide you is a day, time and location.
Yeah.
For that thing you have decided that you need to teach. I said, and, right. So then I went through how it should work.
Yeah.
And he went back off and he came back to see me 6 weeks later and said, right, we don't do any planning, do we?
So the real, so the timetable and the conveners where the rubber hits the road. And if you know the questions to ask and you know how to control the process from the creation of a new course right through to delivery and then right through to the final when that course no longer is offered. So everything that goes along with that process, our timetablers need to know that and need to be able to deliver it.
I was just going to say, most universities, the timetable is like the only person that does know.
Yeah?
Because
There you go.
everyone else is in
You're
a
absolutely
styles. Timetables are on the only very few areas that touch on to every single part of the process.
Yeah.
From start to finish.
Yeah.
So you are a big wealth of knowledge and information.
Yeah. So yeah, the other thing is you've got time to do that. Because actually, guess what? If we're not spending 75% of our time dealing with churn, we can put all of that energy into making sure that the data is correct right from the word go.
Benny, I appreciate the fact that you raised also that it's important for us to go forward and do our jobs. We need to have policies.
Yes.
Because if we don't get that buy-in from the organisation at that senior level, it doesn't give us any guidance of what our jobs actually are.
No.
And what we do have as far as leverage. And I think that's important. We're just going through a process at the moment of reviewing again our timetable policy because things keep changing in the organisation. And I would say to everybody, don't leave things, if you're reviewing, just because your policy is written and it says 3 years, don't leave it to 3 years and then say, I need to change it.
Yeah.
If you see things happening and changing in your organisation, which are sometimes not even our control, it's other things going on in the organisation, bring it to your level advisors to go up and make those changes. You've got to have something to help you.
Thanks, Donna. So I just want you to realise that there is design heuristics and processes out there that you can use as leverage when you're trying to review and find out what the best way is to do the timetable.